Welcome to the Last Poll Podcast, episode number I actually have forgotten. I think it's like 9. So congrats. We're here with Caffeinated Dad. And you know what? I was really looking forward to this because you know, before I hit record, you had said something like, we're like ships passing in the night. You know, we're like, hey, how's it going? And then we just kind of part ways. But I always was trying to find some way to connect. And when you're busy dads, it's actually quite difficult to find that time. So I'm grateful that we scheduled this ahead, put it in the calendar, and then we got it done. So here we are. You know, I want to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but my vision for our conversation tonight is really like that 2 a.m. chat with a good friend where you're just vibing, talking about random stuff, nostalgia. We'll just go from there, right? And then, of course, extreme doom. But
I mean, like we can go down whatever trail you really want to, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. And I had to mention that because there was a bunch of times where I think both you and I have been like, we got like matched up. I want to say at least once we were matched up in a PvP match.
Oh,
and I was
we
like,
were.
oh, hey, that's Sneb. And you were like, oh, hey, that's Calf. And then it was like, that was it. That was all we had.
Never talk
And then,
again.
yeah, I was like, I'll see you next cycle, I guess. It's really interesting that you put it like that because I feel like it's a weird dynamic being a content creator and being a father because obviously the kids take priority. That's always something that comes forefront, which I'm sure you know. But working on these things, you know, in passing by, it's a very delicate balance. So whenever I try to, when you were like, "Hey, do you want to get, you know, schedule on for this?" I was on my vacation. And then I think like last week you were on a vacation or you were otherwise occupied. And then it's like, we're definitely going to do this week. And it was like this Thursday. And I told my wife and I was like, look, Thursday, I just need like at least an hour. Can you give me an hour?
Extreme loser won't shut up unless I meet with Thursday evening. Please
help.
help.
No. It is absolutely nothing like that. My wife, I love my wife because we are different. She doesn't game. She doesn't game whatsoever.
It's the same with me.
Yeah. So she's just like, go talk to your online friends. And I'm like, okay.
Does your wife like
that's
true crime podcasts too?
Well, I did tell her. I was like, and I gave her your link too, and I was like, you know, watch. You know, you can watch live, add an extra viewer, do all that, and she goes, "I'm going to bed." Just straight up cold cocked. She didn't want anything with it, so I tried. I really.
What does your wife like to do? Like, does she listen to like true crime podcasts and watch like what kind of TV shows does she watch? We'll see if our wives are like the same person.
So there's one that she watched and she like she binged the hell out of it. My Lady Jane, I think is one of them. And of course, not too long ago was Bridgerton. Bridgerton was a big one that she got sucked
my wife
into.
watched that one too.
Yeah, she went as far as to get the coffee creamer Bridgerton because she was like, oh my god, it's gonna taste like Bridgerton. I was like, what the hell does Bridgerton taste like? Anyway, that's something I picked on her relentlessly for. But yeah, no, she for the most part, she does like a side business where I mean, with 3 daughters, we have a mess of just clothes and toys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
She has a really successful kind of like side hustle outside of her normal job where she resells these clothes. She, you know, cleans them up, packages them up, and then takes them to these sales where people buy. And I mean, like,
really,
they actually buy them. So she watches her shows while she's doing that, I guess is the best way to put it. How about your
does she buy clothes at like thrift stores and stuff and like kind of flip them, or does she like how does she acquire the clothes?
So my wife is insanely thrifty. She doesn't really go to thrift stores, so she won't go to like I guess like Goodwill or anything like that. She doesn't do anything like that mainly because in her words, I just don't have time for that. So what she'll do is she'll just end up getting clothes and things like that from either my sister who has 5 kids. Or she'll get people who are like giving away clothes and then she'll take those in. So essentially it's like if someone just has them and doesn't want to, you know, deal with them, she'll just give them to us and she'll go through and she'll sell. And I mean, it is an incredible business that I did not realize even existed. Yeah. Like in my mind, and that's something I give her all the props in the world for. Like it's incredible, like how efficient she is with that. And then, of course, any of the clothes that we actually get our daughters that they've just either outgrown or we're not going to use anymore, or what have you. But yeah, it's like a whole the whole thing. Like it's actually pretty insane.
Yeah, my
Oh,
wife's a
actually,
mortgage broker, so she does finance stuff. She worked in as a paralegal for a long time too. She still does that, but more part time now since having the kids. And so she does that part time, and then she does her mortgage stuff the other part time, I guess. And then on top of all of that, she's a basketball coach because she's like 6 foot. She's big wingspan. She's a center. She played what would be like the equivalent of Div 2 in Canada. And then she also played JUCO in the States. They won nationals. So yeah, she was really good.
That's impressive. Now I got to follow up because and Short Kings Unite. I got to ask, how tall are you? I'm curious.
I'm
now.
6'2".
6'2". Okay, so you're an actual adult, whereas I'm like parading as an adult. I have a booster seat in my chair. It adds lift, like height.
I
and all
love
that.
that the internet you cannot tell. Apparently Teapot is like 6'3".
Good God.
Yeah.
Well,
like
I mean,
the
I
chat could probably pop off, and they're all gonna be like, "I'm like 7'10".
Yeah,
People are giants.
like legitimately, like, and I was privileged enough to go out to an event earlier this year out in LA when I was playing through Path of Exile. And I was invited to go try out Path of Exile 2, which was a really cool experience. It was the very first time I had anything big like that happen. So, of course, I jumped onto it. Me and the missus went. It was really a lot of fun. I felt there were. It really put a perception of how tall actual everyone else was. Like, so, Darth, you may have seen him. He's got long red hair. He plays like ARPGs, dark microtransaction.
Oh, you met Darth? Oh, that's sick. Yeah.
It was one of the. It was like I told my wife, and I was like, hey, it is like this is like such a cool moment, right? And she goes, "Who is he?" And I was like, "You don't know who he is, right?" And she was like, "Listen,
man.
if he wasn't in any of the Bridgerton books, I probably don't know." So I'm like, "Damn it!" So I'm like giving her play-by-plays as we're walking up, and I'm like, "All right, so he does this. You're just gonna just look and spot. Hey, how are you?" Like it was a whole
cool.
thing.
Well, it's awesome that your wife got to share in that experience with you too. Like, did they? So they gave you basically like tickets for 2, or did you just like add it on?
Well, I requested because initially it was just going to be me, but when I say that, like the Mrs. Caffeinated has absolutely done like everything to help me not only with this journey, but even like my personal career, or my real life job. We'll say I don't know. This is real life, but I was able to convince the people running it, and they were like, "Hey, we have to just double check." And I was like, "Well, you know, she helps out with recording, she helps out with like assignments and all these other various things." And they purchased her a ticket, and we went, and then we shared the same room, of course. So it was a really big deal. It was the first time I was ever out in California, which was it was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never been there, but you have a pretty good basketball team coming up this year. So
we have a decent basketball team. I will say you never praise any of it. I've noticed especially with any Philadelphia sports, like you never praise anything. You just say, yeah, they're right. Like that's
City
it.
of brotherly love or whatever.
So I just got to say this. I was talking to a member of my Discord earlier, and she was explaining to me the way that brotherly love is set up, and it's not like it's different compared to, and we actually talked about California like interactions where in Philadelphia, like people don't mind helping you, but they're going to be pissed off that they have to help you. Like they're gonna give you crap while they are doing whatever you ask. So like, hey, can you help? My car broke down. Can you help move it a block? And they're going to be angry that they're doing it, but they're still going to help you out. Still going to do it. Whereas the California apparently is that it's just like smiles with daggers, and I didn't realize that, or I didn't quite understand that analysis until I had that interaction. Have you ever? I know that you're from Canada, correct?
Yeah, I'm from Alberta.
Alberta.
Rockies.
How many times? I'm sorry.
I was just near the Rocky Mountains.
Oh, okay, all right. How many times have you been to the States, if I may?
Oh, I mean, I was there last week. I'm there all the time. My wife's actually American. She's from Idaho, from Coeur d'Alene area, which is like nice little lakes and stuff. So
yeah. what do you think of in all of your interactions? What do you think about the areas that you've been? I'm curious.
Oh, well, I'm very fortunate in that growing up, my parents liked traveling, and so we went to different places in the States quite often. So I've been to Montana, to Washington, to Oregon, to Utah, to Idaho, to Arizona, to New York. I haven't been to New York City, but I went to New York State, and then I went to Boston, been to Florida. I've been to Louisiana. So I've been to lots of different places, and they're all very diverse. I think one of my favorite, because it's recent memory, I guess, one of my favorite experiences was Louisiana, actually. I went to there's like a World War II museum there, and it was just so rich with history. And there were these like interviews with veterans that were talking about their experiences. It was just like this massive historical thing. I'm a museum nerd. I love history and learning about the culture. So I went on like a little boat, ate a bunch of seafood. I've also been to California a few times. Yeah. I also, yeah, I guess that's been my favorite recently, but I go to Montana and stuff quite a bit because it's just so close. Right. Yeah. And Montana is very similar, I guess, to where I live. It's kind of like cowboy country. And so we have a lot of agriculture here, a lot of cowboys. It's good. But yeah, I guess I don't know. That's my opinion, is that it's lots of fun. I like exploring and traveling. I've been to lots of different places, so yeah, States is fun.
I think you and I kind of share that same thought, that same kind of vein, because when I do get a chance to travel, my wife and I and we coincidentally make our children we drag them along. We don't like to just take like vacations just for her and I. Like we won't go and like, hey, let's go to, stay a couple days in New York City or something like that. Like instead we would rather take that money and be like, hey, let's go to, I don't know, let's go up to Maine and stay in a log cabin or something like that. I use that as an example, but I like the adventure. I personally love exploring and going and seeing all
Oh
these
man, we're like the
places.
same. I love that.
It,
So are you against? Sorry, I'm interrupting because I'm so excited, but
Go ahead, go ahead.
because I think you'll get this. But I hate sitting on a beach. Are you the same way? I find it infuriating.
It is. It is. So I joke about the caffeine. Like I have what I consider normal, which is about like 3 to 3.5 cups of coffee a day. I don't sit still well. I don't like to just kind of stop moving, stop the train, stop wherever I'm going. So I usually make a very big point that if we are going somewhere, like let's actually go. So whenever we do, sit down on a beach, I can't even like just sit down and like soak in the sun. Like I build a sand couch, which takes like 45 minutes. So you dig out the sand and you do all that. And then I lay out the towel so everyone can sit. And then it's like, all right, well, let's go, let's go play football or run down the beach or let's go do something, right? Like I have such a tough time just sitting down and I can't do that. So when we go to the beach, yeah, like I'll enjoy it because my kids enjoy it, but it's like I'd rather go and I don't know, let's go ziplining. Ziplining recently, I've actually got to do. I've seen all the videos of people doing it. Like I actually got to try zipline. It was absolutely amazing. Like it is so much fun to go ziplining.
Yeah, I'd much rather go on a hike than go to the beach. But my wife is more a beach person. Like she wants to vacation. I want to travel, and that's kind of an interesting problem, a piece of friction between us. Because when we're thinking about using vacation time and doing those things, I'm like, okay, my dream trip right now, it sounds so silly. Maybe it's because it's so simple, but I would love to go to the Maritimes, Eastern Canada, rent a van and just drive the coast and go to national parks and camp and explore. That's like my dream trip. Maybe it seems so simple or something, but I just think it'd be so much fun. But my wife respects it, but she's like, I want to go to Hawaii. I want to go lay on the beach. And we've done that before, but every time I go, I'm like, there's sand everywhere. Like, when are we going to go do something different?
It's hard to shut that off. And I think
Mhm.
you understand that. It's hard to
Yeah.
shut that off and break away from just relaxation. Like I'll sit on a beach I'll do it for a half hour, right? I can probably sit down and relax and do all that. But then I start thinking about like, well, like we could get up and go do this. We could go, I saw this really cool. I actually am not against museums. It has to be a certain one that piques my interest. A couple of years ago, we went down to the Outer Banks and we went to the graveyard of the Atlantic,
Ooh, that'd be
which
good.
was I mean, it's just this beautiful museum, and it just talks about the history of the initial settlers landing in the Outer Banks. And I was like, "This is so cool!" And my wife goes, and we did it that once. But like, I'm like, this is awesome, like because they had like wreckage, they had like historic testaments, like and like the actual papers of this happened. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's certain things that I get really excited about, and my wife's like, "Oh, you're sweet." And there you go. You just go knock yourself crazy.
Yeah. It's like when I killed Sarah CM in Guild Wars 2, I like ran out of my room after I was done streaming and I was like, I did it. Actually, one of the first things I did was texted my wife after. I was like, we finally killed the boss. And she's like, oh, that's so good. Good for you. I'm proud of you.
It's she means well, but it just slightly comes across condescending.
Woo!
Like, I remember when I was streaming, when I first started streaming, I was streaming World of Warcraft, and it was towards the beginning of Shadowlands, and I remember we were working on heroic what was the first boss? The first boss of Castle, I think it was like Castle Nathria or something like that, or the last boss of Castle Nathria, and we finally killed him on heroic. And it was like such a big deal. And I was streaming. I jumped up and I was like, "Oh, this is great!" Right? And she was like, and I know she meant well, but she was like, "Did you kill the big bad guy, babe?" Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
got him.
You took the sales out of it. Took the sales. Can't. Wasn't the same after that. And I was like, I'll tell you tomorrow. I'll tell you tomorrow.
So quick pivot. Gotta get it into the dirty topics here.
Let's go.
I didn't watch the whole video, but I caught some of the video where you were like basically saying that you were worried about Guild Wars 2 or you had some concerns. Maybe you can quickly share the synopsis or the summary. Like what are you most concerned about for Janthier Wilds? Actually, you know what? Rewind. Actually, scratch that. Did you like Soto? That's the important question. Did you like it?
There we go. So if I had to give it out of 10, I would give Secrets of the Obscure probably about a 6. If I'm to be objective, I would say it's about a 6. The reason that I would give it as much credit as it did or it received was mainly because it was an attempt at something new. I really do give ArenaNet credit because they took kind of this like tried and true beaten path and they were like, let's flip the script, let's try something brand new, way out there. And that's and I'm sure doing any type of content creation and being a games company of we'll say a historic MMO, like that takes a lot of guts. You got to go with the risk. But what I think was really interesting about it, especially at the launch, like there was a certain level of excitement that I hadn't seen in quite a while for Guild Wars 2. My main concern as I played through the story is that I didn't feel as involved, I guess is the best way to put it. I didn't feel as if, following along with the story, I didn't feel as if I was we were the main driving force, but I didn't feel that excitement, I guess is the best way to put it. As I did say for, of course, like I bring up Path of Fire, Living World of Season 4, which are both like, Living World Season 4 in my mind can't be touched. I think that is like the peak of Guild Wars 2. It was so good. And I know a lot of people get on Icebrood. I actually liked Icebrood.
The beginning of Icebrood was quite good. It was the end that kind of sullied it for everyone.
Yeah, it was incredibly rushed. I know, but I feel like with Secrets of the Obscure, my main, we'll say, point of contention was that it didn't feel complete, and as I'm playing through it and as I was understanding it, like the initial launch I really liked. I liked that it was kind of like, oh crap, there's this whole other plane of existence that we had no idea if it existed, except for the wizards. The wizards knew, and they weren't telling anyone because they had it under control, but now they don't. So it's like, oh, this is cool. There was that intrigue, but then as the patches went on and there was such a long gap between, all the pieces that came out after, it didn't feel as exciting. It didn't feel like it really held my interest that same way. Now,
the way that I've described it, I think what you're talking about, the way that I've described it is, it's like if you watched a really good pilot for a TV show, and then they're like, all right, come back in 3 months. And you're like pretty hyped about it. But then as time goes on, you discover other TV shows and you're doing other things. And you kind of forget about what that pilot was. The magic is a little bit lost. And then they release the second episode. And the second episode is like the worst thing you've ever experienced. And you're like, oh. And so then you just, you lose engagement. You lose focus on it. It doesn't become as relevant. If you're going to do quarterly updates, they have to hit. Otherwise, you're waiting a whole 3 months to try to make up for it.
And I guess that's kind of what I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment. Now, I do like what they are trying to do, and they've continued to try to do. Like, in my opinion, Secrets of the Obscure all the way through the entire expansion, not only including the Weapon Master training on top of the new weapons added, Ellie getting pistol. I've been messing around with it. It's actually a lot of fun. It's a little janky, but I mean, I enjoy it. But I guess my thing is that I still view them as trying to break out and try something new. And if you're ever going to build up to if you keep that growth mindset, I should say, if you're ever going to build up to something better, you sometimes do have to tear down what you have built. And that requires from you for taking a step back and working your way back up. And I'm concerned but still excited about Janthier. Like I like legitimately I've been just jonesing about getting spears. I was on vacation when they did the spears beta, and I was so damn mad that I couldn't log in because everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever." Was it good?
Guardian spears are, well, so I'm a weirdo and I just like watching other people play with them, but for some reason I cannot get into it, even though they changed so that there's like a slightly different, what was it called? Like the skill icons. They tried to change it so that there's still filler though. I don't know. I just can't play with it when it's not done. Like I'm bothered.
I think I saw some screenshots of it. You're talking about the Guardian. It just looks like a bunch of arrows, right?
Yeah, like the skill icons, they're like, this one does damage and this one is a CC. Like they're symboled there so that it's kind of easier to play with, but it's still not complete. And so I struggle to like engage with it, knowing that it's going to be taken away and that it's going to be changed. So I actually didn't test the spears, but I watched other people test them. And from what I could tell, Thief was broken. Guardian was like really good. And I think people liked Elementalist, that was a little bit underpowered, I think, if is what I recall correctly. Yeah, they look like they're going to be good and fun and novel and different and whatever. But I'm going to go slight Doom for a second. So like prepare yourself, put on your Doom helmet or whatever, get ready. I actually think none of that matters. Yeah. Do you have a Doom helmet?
It's not a Doom helmet or a Doom helmet. I mean, it's my kid's pumpkin, and she won't let me down. It won't fit all the way. That's about as good as I can do.
That's full defense mode. That's good.
Continue.
Yeah, here's the big problem. None of it matters. Like, who cares? If you give me spears, it's not content. It's just a way to engage with content. Spears are not content. The only thing that matters for me in Janthier Wilds is the content. Wing 8 matters a lot. If Wing 8 is not good, the expansion is not good. If the metas aren't good, the expansion is not good. The only thing that matters is playable content. Everything else is just an appendage to that. So I'm quite worried because if everyone's getting spears and spears become the content, I feel like it's going to be really dry. Like there's going to be nothing to do. It's cool that everyone gets spears, but if you have nothing to fight the spears with, who cares?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a fair assessment. And I will say that you definitely have a heck of a lot more experience in the raiding community and in just any of the heavy group content. And I think that's part of the reason that I've kind of made it an objective of mine. I released a video, I think it was like 2 days ago, a day or two ago, where I was talking about like what I'm actually excited for with Janthier, and the fact of course Wing 8, but then me like getting into the grouped content in Guild Wars 2. I got to take this off because I can't move my head. Like actually getting into the content with a group and really focusing that down, because I'm one of the followers of my community for a very long time said that, partially I think the reason that you're enjoying Final Fantasy so much is because you were engaging in grouped content, as contrast to Guild Wars 2 where you weren't. So looking at your opinion and your focus, I do think legitimately that's actually a great way to put it. It's like you have the spears, that's great. Really not that exciting if you don't have anything to stab with.
Yeah.
So
there is one problem though with all of this too. There's one big looming issue.
All right, what you got?
Well, it's good that you, man, I feel like I must protect you.
Are you going to bring up LFC?
Well, no, I just, the Final Fantasy content is way better. Like I'm trying to protect you because if you do the content in Guild Wars 2, the structures and systems around it are just very different. And it's way harder to just jump in. Like you have to have a static on, because you're on NA too, right? So like you there just aren't groups. And I mean, that's why I have the Skane gang and we make all these statics and everything. But even now, like we're actually finding it very difficult to make new groups. People are not raiding, and it's a consequence of Soto. Soto like mentally annihilated all raiders because because it released with no content. And then they were like, oh, we're releasing the CM, and then they released Dagda. And I had people they were like, oh, we're going to take a break and go play Final Fantasy for a bit. They started playing Final Fantasy, got like really into that content. It's like, oh, Dagda, let's all like log in and play. They logged in, had never done the normal mode, flipped on challenge mode, and killed it in one try. One attempt. And then they logged out and logged back into Final Fantasy. And so this is like a big problem because all of these people are just not really playing raids right now. And so my concern is that if you try to get into raids, you basically have to have a static. And like you have a big community, you'll have no problem finding people. But it's a really interesting experience because of the tools and stuff you have in Guild Wars 2 versus other MMOs, group finders, means of just jumping in, different difficulty levels. This makes it really difficult to get into instance content, even though the instance content isn't really that difficult in Guild Wars 2. You have all these people that want to play, but they feel like it's hopeless because they don't ever see anything in the LFG.
And that's, I mean, that is a fair comparison, and that's something that I've noticed as I've gone through playing my time here in Final Fantasy. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, I've gotten this comment a lot, and I like to talk about it too because I don't think that it's necessarily like an either or. I get a lot of people who say like, "Oh, I guess you're completely done with Guild Wars 2," and it's like, no, but I'm kind of banking off of what Guild Wars 2, in my opinion, does great, which is that I can take a break, go off and do something else, and then come back to it. Like I've for the longest time up until the beginning of this year, I had been for like 3 years straight making nothing but Guild Wars 2 content, logging in, multiple hours during the day. I loved it, had a great time. I really enjoyed the journey that I had, but after a while, I kind of got burnt out. And I think seeing the communities in Final Fantasy and how that seems to be like raid driven, we'll say grouped content driven versus being over in Guild Wars 2, I feel like there's just this misconception that it's untouchable. Like the raiding community, if you aren't already up on that tier, then you'll never get to it. And I feel like a lot of new players who come in, who are actively interested in trying raiding, they just don't have that really. I feel like they don't have that really good stepladder, or they don't put enough. And I say this, they don't put enough time and effort into it. Like if it doesn't immediately click for them to be able to get into instance content, raiding, what have you, then they're just like, the game's a bust. It takes time, and I think that's part of Guild Wars 2, we'll say, problem, unfortunately, is that it does take a little bit of time to be able to find that good group, find that good static, find people who will actually raid with you and do the content. And I feel like that's one of the good steps. And I know that your group does. I know that there's a couple of people. Astral Legend is one that does a lot of he does a whole bunch of lore on Twitter, if you guys didn't know, but he also streams occasionally, doing raid teachings and stuff like that. There's, I believe his name is Gix, Gix or something like that.
Gixx, aka Jasper, leader of
Jasper.
XL, also going to be on the podcast this weekend, Saturday morning.
Oh, see, there you go. I think it was like up to 420 legendary armors that him and his group have been able to get new players. I mean, there are avenues for new players to get into. It's just necessarily highlighting them for that. And I think that would go to repair some of the, we'll say, misconceptions about the raiding community in Guild Wars 2. I think, at least.
I mean, I have maybe a scorching take, but I actually don't think there are really any misconceptions anymore. I think people just don't play the content. I think we're all coping really hard when we say, oh, people just have like a really bad idea of what raids are. I think there's lots of people that are interested in raids. They just can't find a group. I think it's really that simple. And what do I know?
Perhaps you would have a better, I believe your take more than I would just say my outside opinion, because you're in the first.
I don't think your take is wrong. I think that it was right, but I actually think it's shifting, right? I think a lot of people were afraid of raids, but I think that that's quieting down a little bit. And I think people realize that it's maybe not quite as bad, but it's just so inaccessible. It's really, really... Like if the hardest part about raids is finding 9 other people to play with, and honestly, that puts most people off. It's not even about necessarily having to meet a DPS check or anything like that. You're at your low level basic raids, like a wing 1, wing 4, even wing 2. It's just about finding 9 other people who are willing to let you learn and play a little bit. But that's what people struggle with. I believe it's the tools and the systems. There are still people, like you said, that really believe that raids are really toxic. But I think whenever somebody brings this up on Reddit now, people get bombarded with resources and discords and guilds that'll help and communities. But it's having to go through all of those steps to actually engage with someone, or engage with a group or engage with this content that really puts people off. At least that's what in speaking with people, that's what they're telling me. They're like, man, it's just like a lot of effort. But both still exist. Both issues still exist for sure.
Well, and that's absolutely a fair point. And I think it's the amount of ease of access in comparison to other MMOs where it's like, and I bring up the experience recently in Final Fantasy where if I want to do a specific raid at a specific difficulty, like I can just press a button and it automatically groups me, or it starts the queue and it starts the search. It does the work for me per se, whereas I can understand where some animosity comes from. It's like, well, I have to go and join this Discord, and then I have to go and talk to this guy, and I have to, the steps in the way, the least amount of barriers, the better, I feel like is always going to be the best way about it.
Yeah, it is. It's just a bear. I mean, if you're willing to put in the effort, especially the social effort required, you can do it. It's just a lot of steps. And I think that's what people find most difficult, because the power creep is out of this world, right? Like most raids are actually quite doable. There's builds that do 30k by pressing no buttons. Like there's a core thief build that you change the auto attack to 3 and you just stand there and just 30k. So that is like 6 times the required DPS to kill any boss in like regular raids. It seriously. And so I don't think it's, and this isn't necessarily like a difficult build to get. It's core. You don't even need the expansions other than to get into raids. So when you think about this, it's not that the mechanics and those sorts of things are necessarily super difficult. There are some bosses where they are a little bit challenging and they take some practice, but it really is like, can you get 9 people to play with who aren't going to like instant leave and stuff? And it's like insane griefing when that happens, but it happens quite often. It's unfortunate.
So let me counter with the thought of if you were able to change anything with Guild Wars 2, how would you go about remedying this concern? What would your like initial thought? That's what I have to do. What would you say?
Well, let me take out the big textbook of changes that I would make.
Big keeping track, like
there, man. It's tough because a lot of these changes, they all like hinge on each other. And so it's hard to say like this would be the most priority or like this would be the most valuable thing to initiate first. The thing that I would probably do is I would just fix the LFG a little bit, right? So I would get rid of the bloat. There's a lot of bloat in the LFG. I would change it so that players could trust each other again. Because did you know that right now you can make a brand new account, boost to 80, and immediately enter raids?
I can imagine that.
And not just enter raids, but you can go into the experienced raid category right now, as long as you're level 80. There's nothing blocking you from doing that. But with fractals, you have to have completed each, like a certain number of fractals to get into the tier 4. Raids, not like that. And that's a huge issue. I would also change it because right now, if you go and read the LFG, it says training and experienced. And this is extremely black and white because people fall on a spectrum of experience. For example, like I wouldn't consider myself the best raider in the game. I also wouldn't consider myself brand new. I fall somewhere in the middle. And somebody might be to the left or the right of me, experienced, less experienced, whatever. But there's nothing to represent that. There's no progression. In fact, when you read training, it says an experienced raider will lead you through the raids. So your options are you know everything or an experienced player will teach you. Isn't that like a bit weird? Because what that means is that you're depending on other people to teach you the raids. But you shouldn't need that. You should be able to go like look things up on the wiki, find some people to play with, and just kind of like trial and error progress through these things. It's a bit odd to me that they put so much emphasis on somebody training, you know?
Well, and I feel like that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, and in my opinion, a lot of pressure onto someone who may be just playing this game, we'll even say casually, or oh, hey, I've done this a couple of times, sure. But I suppose that is I wasn't aware, but I guess that does make sense. Is that if you can go ahead and boost your character to max level and get your core build, you can immediately just jump in and do the quote unquote experience. There's no barring, there's no proof, so to speak, that you are capable of doing that. So, and I suppose it would be kind of hard because I see other systems in place, and I bring up like WoW. WoW does the like either you have to link that you've done the fight before, or like you have to have something of competing, we'll say, credibility. I know in Final Fantasy they have like item level and gear level and stuff like that. I know that plays into a role, but I feel like with Guild Wars 2, it's this weird dynamic because I suppose, and here's a better question that I'll ask you, is that of how much of the population do you actually think is interested in the grouped content, the raiding content?
Less
do you
than
know?
1%.
You said less than 1%?
I think so. I mean, I don't have data, right? I'm just
throwing
a random number
everyone
out there. But put it this way. I'm trying to be careful of how I express this, but I believe that the raiding community is so small that the statics in SG make up a very significant portion of the raiding community. There's like 100. There's like 100 statics that are on NA ish. That's like 800 to 1,000 people. I think that's a significant portion. I certainly don't think it's like the majority or anything, but I think it's a pretty significant portion. And the reason that I think this is true is because if I go in any raid LFG, I am recognized in every group. And I'm not saying that to be conceited or to brag or anything. It's just that's how small the community is. Like I go and I'm like, oh man, I've played with this person like once a month for the past like 4 years, right? Like it's the same people all the time. There's very little new blood. And that's a huge issue. So yeah, I think it's really small, like really, really small community.
And I think from an outsider, and I say from an outsider, it's not that I haven't done raids before. Like I said, I was lucky enough. I had the streamer Astral Legend, or the however you guys know him.
Yeah.
He's actually a mod on my channel, and he comes into my Discord every now and then. He was talking to me and teaching me how to go through some of these raids, and I won't say that I'm like, like I'm untouchable. I think I died a handful of times, but it's a very teachable moment, and I think I do have that kind of like it is a legitimate. It's a little bit of a privilege just because I'm a content creator. People are like, oh well, it's capped at that. Like I could be complete crap, but I was invited to the group because of the content that I've made. I'm all right. The fights were, fairly challenging to understand quickly, but once you got them, they were good. So it's like you have the content, you have the rating that is there, you have a community, a very small, we'll say, but a tight knit community, and people who are willing to help. I think from an outsider's point of view, unless I was so intrepid to go and dig and ask and work to figure out what the state of the game was, I don't know necessarily if I would be even interested in doing the rating or the grouped content or what have you. And I also even bring it more from the casual side of things, because I view myself as a casual Guild Wars 2 player, like very much so. And I just dip into a couple of things. I try these out and see what I like and see what I don't like. And
it's hard to just
like,
dip into raids. It is because of the social part of it. It's hard. And I'm not trying to discourage anyone for. I just think, like I like if I didn't put all this effort in to make this community, when I did, which was when I had way more free time, I actually don't think I'd be raiding, because I think the social barrier would be too high for me. I think if you're like casual, it is way too hard to get into it. I think you're totally right.
And I think that's kind of like even my point, is because like when I first started making full content and I was really focusing on what I was making on YouTube, and then like even progressing my account here in Guild Wars 2, like I had a newborn, like that was about the time that my youngest was born. So like not only was my time capable of staying on a regimented schedule very scarce, but then I also thought about like what I was doing on the background, and then I had like my real life obligations. I do I do in fact have a job as well. So it's like all these different barriers for me to be able to get in. And then I think I kind of looked at it in the same way. It's like I raided a hell of a lot. That's basically all I did when I played WoW. And I played WoW for like 10, 12 years. So it's like at that point I was kind of like I was rated out. I was grouped out. So that's why I think Guild Wars 2 really clicked with me at that rate, or at that point, because I played it off and on. I had my account since right before Heart of Thorns, and I was like, you know what, like let me just dive into this game, let me just do as best I can and progress back to where I was a couple of years ago, just casually playing. When I look at where rating is now, it's almost like I kind of ask myself, what is the incentive, in my opinion, as a casual? If I were to work my way into raids, if I were to find a static, join the Discord, do all these steps to get to where I would need to be eligible to raid and find a static group of players, is the juice worth the squeeze? Or really is my question. What would you say to someone like that, like me, who would be just wondering, what's the effort? What's it worth?
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, you're saying, hey, I have to go through all of these different things, but at the end of the day, is it worth actually pursuing all of those things? Is the reward worth it? Is that kind of where you're going with that?
I suppose that's the easiest way to put it, especially if I'm only casually putting time into the game. Because I feel like a lot of the people who followed my channel were those who were, oh, I'll just, try out the game and I'll figure it out. I mean, I've done a number of like either new player guides or just class description guides and things like that, where I had people who were like, oh, hey, I just picked up the game, giving it a try, and I don't ever really see any follow up, and it's like, oh well, this person is on CM Saris, like they did really well. I don't know any of that. I just know that a lot of the people who engage with my community and the videos that I made, they were just casually getting into it.
Mm-hmm. This is tricky because it requires that I ask you some qualifying questions. I guess, like, what do you find fun, right? Do you find just going and doing achievements and kind of like the dopamine hit of getting rewards fun? Or do you find challenge and progression fun? Do you find socializing to be exhausting or to be a good part of your gaming experience? Right? These are probably the questions I would ask first. And I guess I loaded you with questions, but how would you respond to that?
So, and I think they need to be asked. I think that's an important thing, is because I think they need to be asked, because and it's something that I've highlighted, especially I think in some of my "you just hit level 80, now what?" And it's like that's where essentially Guild Wars 2's Pandora's box opens up, because you can go in any different direction, and they're all right, but you just go and do what you want, and it's a bit overwhelming. Whereas a lot of players are, if they come from, we'll say like WoW, Final Fantasy, other traditional MMOs, there's kind of like a guiding path. Follow this, do this, and then move here. Whereas I've always felt like Guild Wars 2 was just kind of like, hey, do everything, do nothing. There you go. It's all fun. I feel like if I were looking at it from my point of view, let me just, I can say with certainty, with my point of view, I do like the challenge of working on something. And I think that's why I really enjoyed raiding in WoW for so long, because there was times where I would raid and we would get like 300 pulls on a boss before we killed it, but like when you did, it was just like, it was like that moment. I ran in there, I was like, let's go, and I'm like screaming. It was an exciting moment for me, and I feel like a lot of players who come from either like heavier, more traditional raiding games or MMOs would enjoy that. Now, as I look at it as a more from like the casual sense, I would be like, okay, well, I know that I can get legendary gear from raiding. That's something that would be really good. That would be an awesome quality of life thing. I'd like to get the achievements just to say that I've done it. I do occasionally like to hunt down achievements, especially when, they're a little bit, if it is true, the statistic, I don't know. I know you don't have the numbers, but if it's like 1% of the, community is raiders, it'd be cool to have like, kind of obscure achievements that it's like, oh, okay, that's slightly harder to get. Okay, that's cool to me. That's interesting.
To be clear, I actually think more people are interested in raids, but I think only 1% actually do raid. When I say interested, there's some people that are interested for the lore and for the story, and there's some people that are interested for the social experience. But because of difficulty levels and stuff, I think it actually excludes quite a few people. They've made strides like to try to help people get into it, but I think it's pretty tough. I think it's a pretty low percentage. But okay, I'm trying to make sure I remember to ask you a follow-up question, because you brought up something very interesting. You said that you liked the challenge, but there's actually two parts to this. Do you like the social challenge of getting people organized, or do you like the boss challenge? Do you like the puzzles? And because a lot of people say that they like the challenge, and then they go in and they realize that a big part of the challenge is actually just roster CM, as they say, like getting the 10 people there, organizing the people on roles, getting them to communicate. Some people don't like playing HR, essentially. Like, where do you stand on that?
So for me, and I use a little bit of like, jokingly, I say empirical experience. But I used to raid lead a lot in WoW, and I lean heavily on my WoW experience as far as my raiding was concerned. And that was like working an extra job after working 40 hours a week. It was, and it's not like, because I didn't have any responsibilities, because I didn't really have anything other than work, school, and then I could, raid as much as I want. I had no problem putting in the time and effort. I had a lot more free time where I was capable of playing HR, as you've put it. I don't miss it. I like the puzzles. I love a boss that has really, really good puzzles, has really, really good like, mechanics that are occurring. Like, okay, here's our stack mechanic. Everyone has to stack up, but then you have to quickly spread out because he's going to put bombs on everyone. You have to spread out. And then as you're spreading out, there's like, like lasers shooting across the arena. Well, like, I like those types of things. I like those like complex puzzles with boss raiding now. I didn't mind it, but I did it. And whenever I see people who are like putting together raids, like if I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to do my damnedest to be there. But I can't be, it's hard for me to be as committed as I can to also then recruit, two other people and make sure that they're showing up on time. And then, if they don't show up, do I have a backup? Do I have someone who's ready to go? It's as you've put it, it's quite a bit of work. It is. I like those puzzles though. Puzzles,
I think it puts a lot of people off. So I want to get back to your original question, which was, is it worth it? It's very subjective. I used to think it was really worth it, and now I'm somewhere in the middle. Because as my life has changed, as when I first started streaming and raiding, I had one daughter, and now I have two, right? And now I'm about to go off to school and do the PhD thing, and like the things are getting busier and more difficult and more complicated. There's swim lessons, and there's all of these extra things. Sometimes I look at it and I go, I don't know if it's worth it anymore. It used to be very worth it to me because I would meet so many people and do all these things. And that's the part that I like. I like the social part of it. I think one of the best parts about gaming, especially as a dad or a parent in general, one of the best parts is that this is a way that you can stay home and just meet a whole bunch of people and just talk. And,
right?
You get to unite amongst a common, interesting hobby and chat about life. And I think that that's a really fun thing. I like memeing my friends, like Lav was scapegoat, butt end of many jokes. Same with Pazu, and Danny's been like, there's all of these people that have been in my status and groups forever. And we have a really good time. And it's just hard though. At some point it becomes a lot of work, and managing the Skein gang, like there've been a few times and I've had to be like, guys, mods, it's up to you for a while, because I can't, like the mental capacity it requires to manage a big community. It became quite a lot for me. So is it worth it? Yes and no. I don't think that if you were to get a brand new player to Guild Wars 2 and they were to ask me, should I get into raids? I would ask them all the questions I asked you. And if they were like, well, I really like the shinies. And I was like, well, unless you like raid legendary armor, don't do it. There's no point, because if you don't like the social aspect, if you don't like the big puzzle essentially of getting everyone to communicate and do things together, I would say it's not worth it, and that you'd be just torturing yourself. I remember playing with people that were like, I am only here to get legendary armor. And that's why there's way fewer people now actually in raids. It's because when they added the open world legendary armor, all the people that were like forced to do raids, they were like, I'm not forced to do it anymore. I don't want to do it. And fair enough. So yeah, it's kind of maybe it's worth it, but raid rewards in general need a massive revamp if you want to have the top of funnel open. Like, there's just no new raiders. And I'm seeing this in every raid community out there, whether it's Gix's Community XL, whether it's Gamer Haven, whether it's RA. My understanding is just way fewer trainings, way fewer people requesting trainings. And part of that is seasonality, perhaps, it's summer, but another part of it is just, people just aren't interested. Like there's no shiny in the end. The only reason you raid right now, if you're an average player, the only reason you raid is because your friends raid. Beyond that, if you could get better rewards elsewhere. If you're an average raider, if you're like really speed run raider, it's actually really good to do your weekly clears. But if you're an average player that's maybe going to clear in like 4 or 5 hours or something, you can get better gold doing open world stuff. You can get, like, it's just, it's fun though if you like those other parts.
I mean, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that's kind of where I had to do the assessment myself, because when I really started getting into Guild Wars 2 again, and those years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, whenever I really actually sat down, I looked at the raiding community. I looked at of the other, we'll say the quote unquote pillars of the end game. So like PvP, World v World, of course, open world, but the open world legendaries weren't available at that time. I made an effort to myself. I said, you know what, like let's go ahead and actually get the legendaries. And I chose PvP to get my legendaries because I felt like I had more control. It was easier for me to find a match in PvP than it was to find a consistent raid group. Even though I've heard that the consistent raid groups, it's actually technically faster to get legendaries.
If you can get technically faster, but yeah, they're actually misleading you because it is faster if you have a consistent group that full clears every week.
Right.
If you don't, it's slower.
There's like qualifying things that need to happen before it's like you can actually just jump in. Now, I know that there's like a lot of people are very hard set on like not doing PvP or World v World or anything like that. And I think personally the PvP and any type of what we'll say any type of PvP in this game, you're not always going to have the best time, and I think that's part of that's part of the issue. Like let's call it what it is. Even though like I'm caffeinated dad, and and again I don't mean to sound this like I'm big and bad. No, like I log in and I legitimately every match I try my best. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten flamed. Like just because before the match even started, I didn't even have a chance to go into downstate. Like I was just
me. I did the flaming.
Like they were, and it was like on both sides too. Like I had one match where it was a 9v1 before the match even started. It sucked, but it's like I also my background, I should say, is I come from a family that's constantly ripping on each other, like always attacking. Any type of poke we're gonna go ahead and do. We're gonna take a jab at. If you do something goofy, we're all gonna laugh at you. And whenever I get into, especially online, and I have people flame, and they're attacking me, they're doing all this different stuff. I personally I don't care. Like if they need to, unless it's a really good joke. Like I won't even really respond to them. Like if they get me good and they say a really good one, I'll be like, damn, that's actually true. I'll give you that. Like that's well done. Like I can't feed into it. But getting back to my point, I feel like PvP and World v World, just because of the interactions with other players and a lot of people who are either playing a very good class or a very good combination or what have you, and you're just getting instant deleted. The options for legendaries were very few, in my opinion. But then when I actually started getting into PvP and I was dying less, it got better over time. And I feel like I liked the PvP method a little bit better just because I felt more in control of my own destiny, even though I'm getting, flamed.
Yeah, we must talk about PvP now. So I don't know if you heard or if you watched the stream earlier, but MightyTeapot and friends, they challenged me to do a full season of PvP, solo queue only. And to give you some context, I've played about 6,500 PvP games, but most of those were between 2016 and 2018 or 19. The game was very different then. It was more competitive. People, like the matches were better quality. There was less like absolute stomp fests. Games were just better because more people played. Population was higher. And every time I've tried to play PvP since, it's just like painful because the games are just absolute like clusters of CC and like degenerate builds that force you to do like ridiculous things. But anyway, I struggle with this a little bit. So they wanted me to like 120 games. Will he break? And I'm breaking. It's like game 20. I am screaming at the monitor. Like I cannot.
I was hoping you got to like 50 or something. It's like, he almost made it halfway.
Game 3, I almost quit. Like game 3, dude. Game 3, we won the first fight at mid, and then my team, they just like self-destructed, and they got farmed, and we were up 50-25, and we lost like 500-60, and I just like game 4. No, was it game 4? It might have been 4, 5, or 6. But we're like clobbering the team, but my team is moving like a little herd of lemmings, like around the map. And I'm like, please, like, I beg you to stay on the point. And they won't stay on the point. They won't.
I'm laughing with you. I am laughing with you because I've experienced.
Don't even understand. The guy, we went to home, we killed the player, and then the guy's playing like a side noter. He looks at me and he just leaves the point. And he leaves it neutralized and just walks away. Like, what are you doing? And then even worse, we're winning this game the other day, and we should be winning by way more. And then suddenly, it's like we could lose, right? And so I'm dying on point to just try to win. And I look at this warrior or something. I don't know. I always blame warriors because, I don't know, I don't like them.
Easy target.
Yeah, easy target.
Easy target.
It's maybe kicking down a bit. But anyway, the warriors are actually good in PvP right now. But the warrior is on the point, and we have the point, and we're 5 points away from winning. And I die, and all this guy has to do is die on point, and we win the game. And he walks away from the point and lets the enemy cap it. And I think I almost exploded. I am struggling. Like I will say I'm turning from dark sneb into light sneb though. I'm becoming like completely enlightened because at this, like, I'm taking so many emotional beatings that I don't think that I will become so hardened. I'll be a metapod. Like harden. I will survive every attack.
But there's a certain level. There's a certain level of just truth and pain in each one of the words that you just gave me. Like, it was just, and I know it. And I so put this into perspective. In every PvP video, in every single video, unless otherwise, like, I highlighted and I specified, oh, hey, this was about, me and I think like Heavy Hat. We did some videos together, and it's like, oh, me and, one of the members of my community, Spart, like, okay, unless it was specified, I was always solo play. I never grouped up. I never really did anything like that in especially in ranked. I never really had like a two. So it was just me and 4 other people against 5 other people. And it was me and then a duo. And then on the other side, it was like one person duo. So it's like having that support and having the extra person there, I'm sure makes an absolute difference. But there's so many times that I've gone into PvP, even unranked. And I'm like, you know what? I remember having these thoughts. You know what would be really funny is that if I win a PvP match only using conjured weapons, like that would be funny. Like, let's do that. And this was early on when I was just making meme tages, which were like, I look back at them, they were terrible. I don't think that I would have had the tough skin like that I do now, because like I remember distinctly I got into one match and I got like ripped to shreds by my teams, and this was like my first kind of like soiree into PvP. I've only been doing it for a month. I'm still green and I still appreciate life, and it's like really, really bad. No, and I said, you know what? No, I'm good. I don't need it. That's a video that doesn't need to be made. We don't need to do that. I gotta log out for a little bit. I gotta go get some air. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times like I've seen something that happens. Either I get instant gibbed or instant deleted, or someone else on my team, and I'm just kind of like I'm sitting there. I have no idea what happened. It hit me so fast, dude, and then I got sent to respawn.
Willbender, like the Willbender, he presses like 2 buttons and you're just gone. Like you're like, peace. Like I'm out. PvP is so much faster than it used to be. And there's so many different things happening all at once. Here's a good example. Back in the day when it was only like HOT, you kind of knew, you're like, oh, it's a chrono. They're going to never die, right? I mean, that was a bad meta, but you know what I mean. Like you kind of knew what to expect. But now you open it up, you're like, that guy could be doing anything with any weapon.
Yeah,
right? The weapon anything could happen.
Oh anything. My God.
And I find that really difficult. I mean, I'm sure that I know that there's the meta stuff. And so I suppose learning all the meta stuff would be the first place to begin. But I like going to a game and I'm like, I have no idea. Like that Hollowsmith could bonk me with a hammer or he could like shoot me with a short bow. I have no idea what's about to happen. And I think it's way more complicated than it used to be. And it's so much faster. It's like, hello, Sneb. Goodbye, Sneb. Like, good night. Like, it's over. I don't know if I will mentally survive the next 100 games. Like it is to that point where I game 20 and 21, I became enlightened and I was like so mentally exhausted from being angry that I just like allowed the beatings to just keep happening. I just took the punches.
And then at that point, you're just like, I don't need to be angry. I don't need to be upset. It's like this, like I feel the heavenly aura coming down onto you.
Yeah.
Like it's a certain level of just everything's cool.
Oh yeah, but but then something happens where you just become massively triggered by it. Like, I'm like, oh, it's a 2v1, and the guy's like, actually, no, I'm not going to chase that guy with you, and somebody's going to 2v1 me. And now I die, and the other guy is now 1v3ing. But the problem is that, just so everybody knows, I'm not good at the game when it comes to PvP anymore. Like, I am not good. I used to be okay, but
confidence.
I am not good at the game anymore. I see a Deadeye, and I'm like, I have no idea what buttons that guy's pressing, but he's like doing a lot of damage. And so I just don't know. I don't know the game as well as I used to. I don't really know what to expect. I don't know how to counterplay as well. But I just like, oh, man, it's kind of like being an athlete and then becoming really out of shape. And you're like, man, I remember being able to throw that ball really far, but now I can't throw the ball very far. And you just experience all of this like dread when you're doing that. I'm trying to find the fun in it. That's the problem I have right now, is that I just don't, I am hyper competitive. I do not find losing to be fun. I don't.
So I think for a while, especially right after End of Dragons released, I made a couple of videos about the Harbinger, and like Power Harbinger at the time was just like I just remember just absolutely trash canning people. I'm talking like 6K hits, and again, it's like full. We're talking full Zerkers, full everything is like all glass cannon. So like if I get targeted, I'm dead. But I'm like everyone else is, if they get targeted, they're dead. Like nobody has. There is no such thing as survivability.
We're all caught.
Like it's just can I blow this person up before they blow me up? And I remember I laughed, I cackled like a mad lad because it was ridiculous how much damage I could do just like in the span of like 2 seconds. I could take down, I could take down a guardian, I could take down, a warrior, unless they had like some type of like defensive that they were like really quick on. It was just like 4K, 5K, a 6K hit, bit, and then they're dead. People have 15K to 20K HP depending. Like they're done. But if not, they're very, very close. So I remember like just laughing at that because I always tried to figure that out with the Elementalist, and I played the Elementalist, and I play the Elementalist more exclusively than any other class. And I remember trying Hammer Catalyst as a Berserker when it first came out. I never could reach anyone. I could never get close enough before I died. I had like 10,000 HP, like a general sneeze in my direction, and I'm dead. Like it's
kind of crazy. I actually think like if you're starting PvP, the best thing to play is just anything that does a ranged DPS, and then you just stand away from the fight.
It's like, and it's not a bad what? Longbow Ranger, Power Longbow Ranger. You really can't go wrong. Like you just sit there.
Press 2 every once in a while. If they get close, you press 4. Then you press 1 a little bit. Like you'll be okay.
You'll be fine. Send the pet in. The pet dies. It doesn't matter. Just get in there. Like you're good. And I feel like that was always something fun when I was playing PvP. And I feel like I had the most fun with Guild Wars 2 when I was PvPing. I feel like it was always my most fun. And it's because it was a lot of that self-created fun, I think. Kind of wrapping back to what we were talking about, like, where do you find the enjoyment? I really like the PvP. It's because, like, I'm like you. Like, I'm competitive. Like, I don't always have to be, the very best, but I certainly hate being the worst. And I think that's kind of where my competitiveness level is. So I played
what you would
PvP
love?
just to have fun.
You
What's
know
that?
what you would love? You would love doing like 10 thief raids. It's hilarious.
That would be fun.
It's very fun. We did 10 elementalist raids on my channel. We did Wing 4, I think it was, and Wing 7 so far. We did Wing 7 all CMs with all elementalists. It was really interesting. I did flame a little bit. Look, I know you don't know me that well, but sometimes you have to do light flaming. You have to barbecue your team just a little bit so that they're well done and they can get the thing.
Do you allow subtle curse words on your channel?
Oh yeah, of
like
course.
Okay, so you had to light a fire under their ass. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to be like, you are all bad at elementalist, and you should be better. and then we got the kill.
I thought you were. Thought it was going to be a little bit more encouraging. Actually.
Well, I maybe censoring a little bit, but it's sometimes I have to do like a Lord of the Ring-esque motivational speech, and other times you have to flame people. You have to be like, you are bad. I had to tell the Catalyst they were bad at tanking and that they were garbage and they needed to change. And I'm like, you are no longer the tank. And guess what? The next poll, we got the kill with a different tank. But they did their best. That's what matters.
You pulled the Tom Hanks meme and said, like, look at me, I'm the captain now.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to take the wheel.
But I feel like you have to do that though. And especially with something like that it's already, you're starting out with an essence of this is just going to be kind of like goofing around, having fun. Right? Because if you're doing 10 elementalist CMs and stuff, like, yeah, it's going to be one of those things. Oh my goodness, that is a poodle of some sort.
Yeah. The dog came to visit. He's emotionally distraught. Why? Because he's a miniature golden doodle. His name is Obi, like the Jedi. He's a very social creature. Look at his eyes. He's like looking at the camera a little bit. He's like,
he's very concerned right now, actually.
Yeah. He's like, I knew that you were stressed about the PvP earlier. I know that they were bad, Dad. Tell them that they're bad.
I have an old sleeper with me. Hey, Boo-Boots.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, hold on. Oh, come on, old lady. Wait. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here.
I love dogs.
Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. I don't know if you can see her. There we go.
Oh, a little lab.
Yellow Labrador.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's... Come here.
Big lab.
Come here. Come here. Come here. There we go.
Oh, old
she was
labs
sleeping.
Are just so sweet. Yeah.
Had this dog for she's 14 years old.
Holy,
she was my parents for like the first like 4 or 5 years, something like that. And then once we were able to actually, my wife and I were able to get an apartment. That was like the first one who came over. She's my old sleep. I joke about it, but I'm serious. Like when she lays down in our room when I go to bed, like if I don't hear the heavy, sweaty breathing from her, it's like a sound machine, man. I clock right out.
Yeah, this guy, he I tried to crate train him. I lasted 1 day.
Yep, that's about it.
Crate training broke me. I couldn't do it because he cried. He was like, ooh, and I was like, I can't do this. So I tried like laying in the crate with him, and that kind of worked for him, but it didn't work for me. So I was like, fine, and I just put him next to me, and now every night when it's bedtime, he goes up to the bed, he hops on the bed, he goes right in the middle, puts his head on the pillow, and goes to sleep.
Yep. It's funny because when she was living with my parents, my dad's very against like having dogs in his bedroom. He never wanted dogs in his bedroom, despite having 3 dogs of his own, like big dogs. He was like, I never want dogs in the bedroom. She came along, and he was like, she can sleep on the floor. and it was it was like a hop, skip, and a jump away, and then she ended up in the bed for a while. And he's like, "This is my nightmare. I hate this." My mom's like, "Oh, don't worry. She's all sweet. You know, she won't stay and stick with this, and she won't do it." Now it's like she doesn't sleep in our bed because by the end of the night, like at least one kid has gotten out of their bed and into our bed.
For me, it's both. Yeah, every night, both children are in the bed at this point.
And you know what? I value sleep at this rate. I'm kind of like, I need the sleep. If that's how everyone goes to sleep, then so be it. I'm not going to be like, no, get back in your bed till 2 a.m. I ain't got that kind of fight in me.
No, I don't either.
I'll get her, and she likes to crawl under the bed and sleep under the bed. I don't know why.
That's neat.
That was never anything that I'd never trained her to do that. We have a bed outside of our bed where she can go and sit. She chooses to go under the bed. I can't. You're a good guy. I know. I woke you up, and you're kind of like, "What's up?"
Oh man, dogs are just such an easy transition topic. You just like doggo, and then boom, there it is. I actually forgot what we were talking about before. My dog just came, and then it was all over.
We were talking about the anger of PvP.
Yeah, but
which then we went to a positive topic.
Yeah.
See, there you go. Good transition.
Yeah. When I killed Saris LCM, my dog was like checking on me because I was screaming, right? And the dog came in. He's like, "You okay, Dad? Everything okay there?" Yeah.
Anytime that I get worked up and I shout, because I the room isn't necessarily soundproof, but I close my door and I kind of just so I can have an area. I have another dog, and he's more my wife's dog, and I roll my eyes a little bit because that dog gets like the special privileges, where this old gentle lady over here I have to fight. Anyway, that's a different battle. Anytime I get excited and I'm like I'm shouting on stream, he thinks that there's someone entering our house, so he goes into full panic mode. And he's barking, and I hear his footsteps running up and down like the hallway, freaking out. Can't do it. There's a certain decibel that I have to keep it under without him freaking out and waking up the whole house. So if something cool happens on here, I can't be that excited about it, and it sucks. Like I have to keep it down to a dull roar, a low ha, as it were.
Yeah, my doggo, he you can probably hear him in the background. There's a cat and a couple of rabbits that like to run through the front yard, and he has to defend the property. So he goes up to the window and yells. It's his thing.
Good dog.
Yeah.
Good dog.
Anyway,
that's what got good.
I've got one big topic I really wanted to talk to you about. I just want to know what you think about the community. Because I'll just give you my honest perspective. Of the Guild Wars 2 community, but I'll give you my honest perspective of this, and I'm just curious what you think. And maybe I'm just wrong, but I feel like there are like little cliques in Guild Wars 2, and then there are people that are kind of on their own island. And I view you as kind of on your own island. Like there's probably a few people on your island with you. But that's why I've always been trying to like reach out and like, we got to find a way to like connect. Right. But that's kind of how I viewed it. And I'm curious how involved you are with the Guild Wars 2 community, just what you think about it.
So to be sure, I have thoroughly enjoyed all the time that I've spent with Guild Wars 2, and I'm excited about the time that I am going to be spending with the community that is not only the one that I have built, but then also other people's community. I can see your point of it being kind of like a clique group, because of course you have the people who follow Mukluk like relentlessly. You have MightyTeapot. I don't know if Valen really does. He occasionally streams, I think, Guild Wars 2. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, there was a thing that happened, and then I saw him streaming Guild Wars 2 the other day, but I think he's playing lots of different things at this point.
Okay, maybe that's something that you can follow. Time for another.
I'll tell you later.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, and then I look and I see like you have your community, then you have Loranity, and that whole community. I mean, there's so many different like little sections that you have all the way across that I can kind of agree that I don't necessarily fit into any given one. Personally, I love the Guild Wars 2 community. I've always loved the Guild Wars 2 community. And I think it was because I had done quite a bit of growing up, actually, directly in front of, I mean, not like, I mean, I physically have gotten older, of course, but I mean more so being on a digital space and being a content creator in front of a community who has essentially welcomed me and then helped me grow into where I am today. And of course, I'm always, and I say this to a T, it's like I'm always so grateful of what the community has been doing. But I do agree that there are kind of like these little sections, like, and especially with either with streaming, with videos and stuff like that, it's kind of like I've always seen, and it's just again from my perspective, I've seen people who have like almost like the that's their group, that's a part of their group. And what's it? I bring up the example of like Lord Hyzen. I think is a good example. It's because I know Lord Hyzen makes some really good videos and does like really wacky. Well, I say wacky challenges, but like just like how the hell did he even figure that out? Type stuff. But I've always kind of associated him with like Mukluk's community and stuff like that. So it's kind of like there's these different pockets of where everyone sits. And I never really viewed myself as being in one of them. I've just
Yeah,
been kind of
I don't
floating,
think
I
you have to
suppose.
be either. I just thought I always just thought it's interesting because I think you just work really hard and do your own thing and you're quite successful at it, and I think that's really cool. And I think there are other people who I view kind of similar. Like I actually think you and Mukluk are quite similar in that you kind of just do your thing, rock out. You're friendly with people if they ask, but you're just on the grind, doing your thing and doing it well. And I respect that a lot. And I was just curious if that was by choice that you, or is it because I find that I've kind of changed. I used to be in everyone's chats, talking to everybody, meeting everyone, talking to everyone on Discord, being in everyone else's Discord. And over time, again, I got busier. Life changed, kiddos, everything, right? As I've got busier, I've just kind of gone to my own thing, and maybe like I hang out with Teapot quite a bit. But beyond that, I just kind of do my own thing too now. And I'm wondering is that because you're kind of in that same boat where, you got a bunch of kids, you got a job, you don't have time for like figuring out all the social intricacies. You're just going to do your thing and do it well. Or is there another reason that maybe I don't understand?
So I think the easiest way to explain this is to talk a little bit about why I even got into this realm, why I even got into creating content. Because I was playing Guild Wars 2 before I created content. I was playing WoW before I created content. I did the League of Legends for a while. I think that also helped me out deal with Guild Wars 2 PvP. I'll be honest with you, that really helped. But I think or the reason that I really got into it with making content and looking to make more of my own path, I think is the easiest way to put it, was because during the pandemic, I had to fight for my job. At the time I was managing a fitness center, and I had to fight for my reasoning to even be paid, which it's kind of a big deal because then it's like my wife works, but then it's like then we're down to half, and it's like that's a hell of a lot of cuts all of a sudden. So I had to really start busting butt to figure out what I was going to do, and what I started doing was because I worked for it wasn't like a public gym, a box gym. It was for a corporate fitness, so I was working for a company. Was I started creating videos. I started creating fitness videos and stuff like that, and then live streaming classes via Zoom and things like that. And during that time, right before the pandemic hit, I actually had my middle child. Um, I got to spend basically the first like 2 years of her life with me being there every single day. With my oldest, I had to go into work every single day. Every single day I was away from the kid. And I'm not saying that, it was, we'll say, that there's no concerns about my oldest, let me put it that way. My middle child had a significant change in behavior. I felt like we were a little bit closer in some regards because I was there, because I was during that very tenuous age between birth to 2 years old. That when I found out that I was going to have my third child, I made a real big point to my wife, and I was like, I want to figure out a way to make this whole like making videos and content creation. I want to figure out YouTube is basically what I said. And at the time, I was playing just Guild Wars 2 on the side. I never really considered of making any type of content on it. So I went ahead and I focused on that, really hammered down doing, like stupid videos. I didn't even make Guild Wars 2 videos to start. I made it on an RTS called Northgard.
Oh,
But I saw that as an opportunity and a way for me to be able to forge my own kind of like my own way and my own schedule and my own time. I became my own boss. That's what I view YouTube as an avenue that I would be able to control where I need to be. So as my kids got older and they have, like you mentioned, activities and school things that pop up and where I need to be, which they are the most important thing. I need to find a way that I don't have to be like, oh, sorry, I missed it because I had to work. Like, no, I do content creation full time. I can just go and do, go to volunteer at my kid's school because I have the say of what I do with my time. And I think that's what got me down this route. And it's really interesting to see where I've come from and to this point that I'm at now, because I don't think that I certainly did not expect me to be able, or my channel to be where it's at right now, or even like my live stream. I did not expect that, really. I just kept, as you said, like I just kind of did my own thing. I just kept working at it. And I will give Mukluk like all the props in the world, because I've actually gone to him a number of times talking about content creation and like how he does his things. I don't know how he's able to stream every single day. I give him all the credit in the world for being able
it's
to pull
hard.
that off. But
It's really
once I
difficult.
figured out what I wanted to do, I just really started to find a way to put it together with something, especially with video games, something I really love. So, and Guild Wars 2 was a game that I was really adamant into right about that time, and it was kind of like everything came together all at once.
Very cool.
That was
Yeah.
one long sentence. That was very long breaths. So please, for the love
Yeah.
of God, say something so I can take a
No.
drink.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, for me it's a bit different. I don't know. Sometimes I think about it and I like regret a little. Yeah, I mean, I'll just speak candidly. I started streaming because I was really bored in the pandemic. I was in grad school and I lost all my social functions and I was really lonely. And I mean, I just had a baby. I was just looking for some connection, right? And in Canada, we were like locked down really hardcore. And I have no opinion about that really. That's just what happened. And so I lost a lot of social connection. So I started streaming and like doing funny things just because I thought it was fun. And then it grew and grew and grew and made like a little community out of it. But I never really got into YouTube because I just always viewed myself as not capable of doing it. Like, oh, I don't know how to edit. I don't even know I don't know what I would do. And so I was always worried about it not being good enough. So I just never posted. Then, the twisted irony is that I teach like marketing and I always tell my students, you have to, just make one video, make one project. And the next one, you just make it 1% better. But then yet I still had this fear. And so only recently have I started doing like a little bit and I'm learning and, I'm just doing it where I can. And I think it's pretty fun, but I've always viewed this very much as a hobby. And I've always thought it'd be like really cool if I could, go and do like a trip to California, like you had or something. I've always thought that stuff would be really neat, but I don't think I've ever really put in enough effort to get to that point. I think that I look at folks like you and Mukluk and Teapot and all the bigger content creators that I know. And I just go, yeah, it's like a ton of work and a ton of effort and you just got to do it. You just got to grind. You just got to make content and sometimes it's going to hit and sometimes it's not. But yeah, it's really interesting hearing like your perspective of how you went about it when I think that if I were to go back, I would have been doing YouTube 4 years ago and just uploading my streams and just trying, because if I'd done it 4 years ago, then today the videos would be a whole lot better. But I mean, that's hindsight's 2020, I guess,
Let me. I'm going to see if I can pull it up real quick. Hopefully, it's not. Do you allow links to be shared?
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'll ban you right after, but like,
Yeah, that's fine. So, this was copy the link. There you go. I just put it in a chat. That was my very first like full effort video. And it's like 12 or 13 minutes long, I can't remember, but it was me talking about 5 reasons why you should play Northgard, right? I remember the setup and then the edit for this video. This video alone took 2.5 weeks for me to make. It was a lot of work, and I'm sure that you know damn well that most of these things, any type of, you know, reward that you're going to go after, whether it's in game or in real life, it requires effort. You're going for your PhD, that requires a hell of a lot of effort, and it's kind of like taking those initial steps. And I was actually that's why I was so excited to see that you got monetized on YouTube, because that's awesome. That's a huge step, man. Like
Yeah,
getting
well,
1,000 subscribers and the
well,
watch
it's kind
hours.
of
That's a
weird.
big deal.
Like it's weird to think about because literally this is my attitude shifted. I went from I don't think it's good enough to I'm just gonna put out like the minimum viable product. That's what I thought. I'm just gonna take snippets from the stream. I'm barely gonna edit them, or I'm not gonna edit them, and I'm just gonna upload these like moments, right? So I thought, well, the best way I can do this is to do a podcast because I already have some experience in that. I like talking to people. It's really fun and engaging. And I'm in a position where I feel like I can reach out to people because I'm not really afraid to do that because I'm a weirdo. and so I just do it. And I just had a conversation and I put it up and that was it. And, you know, shout out to Sab for really encouraging me to do that as well. We were just chatting casually one day and I was like, what if we made a podcast? What if we, and he's like, yeah, I'll be a guest. I'll like co-host it if you want. And so I've had Sab on a whole bunch of times. He's going to be on Saturday as well with Gix. And yeah, I just take the podcast and just put it up. And that's basically all I've done on YouTube. But the podcast excited me because I put the first one up and it got like, I think it got close to 500, 600 views pretty quickly. And I was like, whoa, like people actually like this. And then I did another one and that got like 600, 700. And I was like, oh, people seem to like it. And then I did the one with Lara and that got like 3,000 views. And I was like, whoa, like to me, that's like a lot. Right. And I went, wow, people are watching, they're listening. They think it's something good. It's something valuable, even though like I don't have perfect editing or audio or setup or whatever. Like I'm just talking to people and interested in them and people seem to like that. And so I was just surprised. And so it inspired me to, well, what if I did this like 10 elementalist meme? You know, I won't edit it very hard. I'll just like, I wasn't even doing thumbnails. And then I read this thing that was like, if you do thumbnails, people will watch the video. They're more likely to watch. I was like, okay, I'll just try a thumbnail. And shout out to Silhouette. I don't know if you know Silhouette. You'd like talking to Silhouette too. Really nice person. But Silhouette, he was like, yeah, you just like take an image that people commonly associate with you and you just use it a lot. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'll do that. So it's just funny how like these little wins motivate you to keep going. And then I kept telling my community, I was like, oh, it'd be like really cool if I could do YouTube partner by the time Janthir Wilds came out. And literally like 2 days later or the next day, YouTube was like, you qualify for partner now. It's like, okay, I'll just apply.
It's fun. And legitimately, I love playing video games. I especially love good video games. I think, given kind of like my thought of a background of, we'll say, like kind of like puzzles, as I mentioned with rating. That's one thing I loved about rating is just the puzzles. YouTube to me is a puzzle, and it's like every time I go and upload, I'm like trying a different configuration. I'm trying something slightly different, and I'm seeing how well that does. And I mean, there's some videos that I made the video explaining why I stopped playing Guild Wars 2 for about like 6 months. I did that video, I want to say a month ago. It's up to, I don't know, it's got quite a few views. I released a video last week of me trying out Elden Ring for the first time, and it tanked harder than a sack of potatoes. And it's like, even now, even though like you have this again, the subscriber number is, in my opinion, kind of like pure vanity, really,
vanity
at this point. Yeah, it's really just to say that you're cool. I do have a standing joke though with my wife that if I do ever hit 100,000 subscribers, I have to get a tattoo of the caffeinated dad logo. And she gets to pick the position. So I'm just very,
That's risky.
it's
Anything
very,
can
very
happen.
risky. But it's also kind of like one of those things that like that's kind of like a goal to me whenever I work on YouTube, whenever I experience this, like, because I'm like you, I'm a very social person. If you don't stop me from talking, I'll probably keep talking. I like interacting with people and I like joining these different communities and having these different people that I meet. Like actually, I saw Witchy Bunny was here earlier. Witchy Bunny is one of the mods for my YouTube channel who I met via Final Fantasy. And it's like the Final Fantasy community's been it's been great. You know, me just playing through the base story of the game. It's actually been like it I mean, I'm actually getting stream numbers above 100, which for me that was never something that I did. Never like had that type of experience, but it's like it's something new. It's something for me to test out and try. And that's what I love about YouTube. It's that every time I upload a video, it's kind of like, ooh, is this one going to do it? And then it's like, oh, okay, this one was all right, middle of the pack. And it's like, oh, this one did really, really good. And most of the time, the ones, and I said this to Astral Legend once, most of the time, the videos that do really, really well are the ones where you put like barely any effort into the edit.
Yeah.
In my experience, what I've done here on YouTube, my
Yeah.
PvP montages, I would probably spend about each video that was only like 4 or 5 minutes long. I'd probably spend about like 6.5 hours editing, just timing each
Wow.
into it. It was way too much, in my opinion. Now I look at it, but I would time it way too much and do all that. I started talking about having like the topic videos where it's like, for example, you know, the 5 things that I'm excited about for Janthier because I felt like that was something that you know, I'd like to share. Why not? I'd do it. And it's like it's you know doing better than most of my most recent videos. So taste and we'll say quality is subjective, really in this point. Sometimes you can just honestly just do what you're doing. You do a podcast on Twitch and you know kind of shave off some of the areas just for YouTube. And most people will sit here and listen to the whole podcast. Podcast is 2 hours. They'll sit there and listen for 2 hours or at least an hour and a half. It's really incredible because in my mind, I don't think that I would do it, but there are other people that would. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm excited for you. I'm actually really
Yeah.
excited for you.
Well, I'll tell you. Maybe this is a little bit personal. Well, it's not like personal, but this is aside from gaming, right? I'm about to go into this PhD thing, and I've had this like little morsel of success, right, with YouTube. It's nothing big or anything. It's just fun, right? And I think about it, and I go, I'm about to do something very unique that very few people do, right? I'm about to go and do a PhD in marketing. There's not that many people that do a PhD in marketing. Sure, there are other people, of course. Like my cohort's going to have like 2 and whatever, right? But I'll probably be one of maybe less than 100 people in Canada that's doing a PhD in marketing. And I feel like that's a very unique experience. And I kind of wonder, should I document that experience? Should I like vlog my experience? Should I make videos like how a PhD student studies, how a PhD student does research, how a PhD student, whatever, right? Like I've thought about doing stuff like that only because I feel like that's something really, it's totally aside from gaming. It's a totally different side of me, one that I don't really talk about too much on stream or anything, but I feel like that could be really neat. And then here's the even nerdier part. That I think I'm probably going to get the term wrong. I think that's called ethnographic research. Somebody's going to correct me. Oh, what is it? The kind of research where you go and you actually live the thing, you do the thing. Because I don't know if you know, but the area of interest I have in marketing is influencers. So I want to research influencers, gambling advertisements, gambling in general. And so I've thought, well, what if I just like made that like a research project where I create this YouTube channel and I make these videos and I try to grow it. But I'm documenting how I feel and like what I experience and how it motivates me or demotivates me or affects how I feel that day. and write a research paper on that. I actually think I could do that. And I had this idea like 2 or 3 days ago, and I can't stop thinking about it because I think it would be super interesting. But I don't know. I also think that's a lot of work, but I don't know.
I'm considering actually joining somewhat into that vlogging idea with you in that sense. Maybe not that exact, because that's more like I got up to my master's degree and I was like, that's about as much education.
What'd you do your
as I'm gonna
master's
want.
in?
Applied physiology. So it's
Oh,
more
okay, yeah.
going kind of like down and around what my bachelor's was, which was exercise science.
Gotcha,
Um,
yeah.
but it's interesting because I guarantee you someone's going to be interested in watching that. I guarantee you there are so many like little niche communities on YouTube of people who just, if you're vlogging, for example, and you have a unique experience, what you might even think is benign, people are going to find that interesting. There is a community for everyone, and I've said this always about YouTube, and that's why I love this damn platform, is because no matter what you do, there is someone who's going to be interested in what you were doing, and they'll watch the whole thing. So I talked about it. I went on my family vacation and I recorded basically everything that we did. I also recorded the trip to Path of Exile stuff out in LA. Like, I have those, and I'm trying to find time to edit them and put them into a little bit more of a concise manner. But I know that there's people like going on a trip to where we went, which was, Central, or not Central America, like Midwest, something like that. Someone's going to be interested in that because they live in England, or they live in, somewhere where they don't have access to that, and that's outside of their norm. For example, I bring up my old man. He lives on a farm, and he deals with a lot of trees and taking down trees and stuff like that. There are people who don't live anywhere near where they do that, or they have access to. But yeah, I'll sit there and watch a 5-minute video of this, this guy taking down a tree. That'd be fun. That's cool. What's he going to do with it? Like, it's, people will watch those types of things. And especially if you're doing something that is very, very, like, it sounds like incredibly niche, like out of 100 in Canada's a pretty big place. Like,
Yeah,
that's
I don't know if
really,
that's the
really
exact
rare.
number, but like the point is that there's probably not that many, right? But yeah, maybe it is.
Guarantee you someone's going to want to watch.
I don't know. I just, it's so interesting. There is this like deep fear, that's, I think it's interesting to like acknowledge and confront that fear, this fear of being rejected and this fear of like people hating what you're doing. And it's funny because I face that, I face that all the time when I stream. But I think I've gotten better at, I think one of the things that streaming has really done for me is it's made me a lot more comfortable in my own skin. Because like people will say things like, your opinions suck. Like they're horrible. And you know what? Sometimes they probably are. Sometimes they're probably awful. Or they might say, Sneb, I hate the way that you talk about the game. And you know what? That's totally fair too. But I've just come to accept that I don't care. I'm just gonna say it anyway.
That's you're winning the internet, man.
Yeah.
That's how you win the internet.
Yeah.
Like,
But for
so
some
good.
reason, like with YouTube, there's this level of permanence. It's just slightly different. I don't know why it intimidates me so much, but I think I'm like, ooh, my mistake in the live stream. I guess like the internet is always perfect, but for some reason, YouTube, it just like messes with my head. It's like, this will be forever, right? Like I make this video and then it's bad. And I don't know. I got to get over that. But I really think maybe there's this opportunity for me. Like another thing I've thought about, I feel like I'm just spilling random ideas, but another thing I thought about is academic papers. People have no idea what really goes on in academic papers. Like the average person can't read one and understand what it means. And this is why you have like these different
Is your
websites
p
and
value
stuff.
less than 0.05?
Yeah, they'll come and they'll like talk to you about what it means. But I don't really feel like a lot of people do that on YouTube, especially with like business papers. Business papers are quite interesting because they're actually talking about things that people can understand. Like if I tell you linguistically that certain words, because of the way they sound, have different impacts on what you feel, then you're like, oh yeah, like that makes sense to me. But they might not understand the intricacies of that or what that really means and how that can affect a brand or an organization or morale or whatever.
Mhm.
So I've thought, oh, I could just like take common papers or what we call like the seminal articles of marketing, and I could just talk about what they mean and why they're important. A good example of this I'm nerding out hardcore right now, but
Do your thing,
there's
man.
there's a paper that I love, and I actually got to meet the author, and he's just like brilliant. But anyway, the paper's about identity and possessions and how we use the stuff that we have as a representation of who we are, and how an example here is like this basketball card. So people listening, they can't see, but I'm holding up a basketball card of a Canadian basketball player named RJ Barrett. And I am a big basketball fan. My wife's a basketball coach. I love watching basketball. I'm going to a basketball game next week. I love basketball. And this card is more than just a piece of paper with a picture on it to me, right? This card is a representation of who I am to some extent. And I think this paper can be used to explain so many different things. There's another paper that follows up about possession in the digital age. And it actually references MMORPGs and talks about how these character avatars, as they call them, our characters are representations of self and who we are and what we care about, what we value. And I just think that this is the most interesting thing ever, but not a lot of people would think about that or consider it. But they might be interested in knowing about it. So maybe I could do that too.
But I think that is that's something that a thread I would keep pulling on if I were you, because you have a unique, we'll say, skill, and to understand what's happening with these papers, or what's to be able to read a research paper just in and of itself is its own skill. Like let's just call that what it is. But you just, in that sense, simplistically put that paper into a layman's term that everyone can understand. Everyone, who's watching that can understand. Oh, okay, well that kind of adds up. That makes sense. And it's like that could be even just like the shortest bit of a 2-minute video. It doesn't even have to be heavily edited. 3-minute video, whatever you want to do to get your point across. But it could be, how MMORPGs, again, this is just off the top of my head, MMORPGs, you're recreating yourself, or you view yourself as your avatar or something like that. And there's a way that you can spin it that it would be interesting. And I think you would be very, very surprised at how many people would be interested I'd do it. I'd watch it, just because. And I see some of them popping in here. Actually, some of the Final Fantasy community, for whatever reason, my FF14 character is a bald man with a giant mustache, and he has the most tired, degenerate eyes. And I don't know why I did that, but it just kind of felt like, that felt right. And it's like I run with it. I mean, hell, the damn coffee mug has a picture of him. Thank you, Sir Nix. So it's like one of those things that I think that's interesting, because I can find myself in that video. I can apply myself to what that topic of the video is, and it might be something cool that I didn't know. So honestly, I think you have a rare advantage on specific topics like that, especially because of what you understand and what you find interesting.
Oh man, I should do it. Oh, that's the painful thing, is I have to do it now. I have to. Oh,
it would be really cool. I think you would be very, very surprised. Just saying. Okay, that's
okay.
I'd read that paper.
Okay.
I was going to say Moonfighter, Witchy Money. They're all those are some of my FF14 community. But it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I love hearing these things that I have no idea about, but are explained easily. There's a really big channel, and I can never say it, but it's got the little animations, and they're kind of very cartoonish and circular. It's like Kurt's Gods explains the world or something like that. I can't remember the exact channel name, but they take very complex things and explain it in a very simple and direct approach. And it's like I watch almost every single one of those videos because it's usually something cool. Because it's like, how elephants never get cancer or something like that. And it's like, what? Like, let me hear that. I have
Whoa,
no
wait a
idea.
second.
Yeah, it's like, but I'm watching the hell out of it. It's 10-minute video, and they just explain it very. Yeah, there. Strizel just brought it up. Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
It's stuff like that, man. You have a rare skill, we'll say a rare knowledge bank, and people love that type of stuff. Like,
God,
just I'm just gonna put that out there and
I should
say it.
just
Like,
not be so self-conscious. I get really nervous about it. Yeah, like even right now, I'm playing with this little string in front of me because the idea of doing that, like, it's like a vulnerability hangover, right? Like the idea is really interesting to me, but it also scares the hell out of me, right? But I think I should do it, particularly because it scares me. I think I should do it. But yeah,
I
will probably
mean,
do it.
I'll be honest with you, and I just speak from the experience, and it's bound to happen. Is not like not every video is always going to be the best. It's not going to perform the best, or you might actually even get negative feedback, at like heavy from your core community. And it's I remember at the time I damn near had like a panic attack when I made a Guild Wars 2 video where I was talking about me myself not using low intensity builds, like builds that were, just like one button rotation, two button rotation, like, and especially with me playing like the Elementalist, I want to play something that, like, I want my fingers to hurt a little because I want to work for it so I can perform better. Like, I like that skill being shown. And I talked a video, very personal experience of me not playing those builds. It got downvoted and it got so many negative comments within the first hour and a half. I legitimately, I didn't know if I should take it down. I didn't know if I should, like, I remember that was like my first real experience of essentially like heavy negative feedback. Because at that point, no one really said like, oh, well, you didn't edit this video enough or something like that. I've never gotten a comment like that, but I've definitely gotten a comment where it was like the content of the video was not okay. And that is something that I always kind of keep in mind. As long as the content is good and you're explaining yourself in a right way, the edit is really subjective of people who care about it. I think you can do it, man. I'm excited. I'm
I'll
excited.
try it. All right, I have one last question for you. Um,
So
what do you?
elitist.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. What are you gonna do? Like, how do I put this? How are you gonna approach Janthier Wilds? Like, what's your mindset when you go into this? Because I know you have some concerns. Soto, you took a big break. What's your mindset going into Janthier Wilds? Are you one of those people that's like, oh man, if this game isn't, I'm done with Guild Wars 2? Or is this kind of like I don't really have like a lot of emotional investment in it. I'm just happy to enjoy the game for what it is. Like, where do you stand with that?
I am going into Janthier Wilds, and don't ever. And I've said this a number of places, a number of times, and I will always say this whenever I'm going into a new expansion or a new game or any type of new medium that I'm crossing. I'm going with the lowest possible expectations. The lowest possible expectations, and the reason being is because either I am right or I am pleasantly surprised.
I
And I
like that.
found out that is always. I know it's kind of like, damn, he's setting the bar really low, but I also feel like that's why I enjoy one of the criticisms that I've gotten, especially when I was like reviewing videos, is people are like, well, I don't think you're critical enough, and it's like, yeah, because I'm not looking at it from like a hyper focused lens, and it's like I'm just going in there and playing the game. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, it was pretty fun. I keep playing it. Or I'd be like, yeah, it was all right. I only played 5 hours of it. With Janthier Wilds, I'm going in with low expectations. I'm not comparing it against Secrets of the Obscure. I'm not comparing it against any of these other expansions. I can look at it with a bit of hesitancy compared to Soto, let's be serious. But I'm not like, all right, if this isn't, Path of Fire or, season, Living World Season 4, level, I'm done with the game. Now, I don't think I'll ever truly be done with Guild Wars 2. It would just be depending on the frequency of breaks, we'll say. I think I'm going into it with a very kind of like optimistic. I think that they're going to do well with this. I do. I believe that they are going to do well with the expansion. And if I'm wrong, then, I'm wrong and we'll go from there. But I'm optimistic.
Very cool. Well, hey, we've come to about the
If
2-hour mark.
Yeah.
It can't be lower than Day. That's true. There's very low expectations.
Kind of low there.
Yeah. Well, hey, this has been an absolute privilege to speak with you. I am so excited we were able to connect. I feel like people know you, but in case they don't, shill yourself, tell people where they can find you and maybe something you're up to next.
So I am exclusively on YouTube. For some reason, every time I try to stream to both Twitch and YouTube, my computer implodes and the stream goes down. So I just stay strictly with YouTube. Upload videos most of the time, like 2 to 3 times a week. Streaming twice a week right now, and as some of my Final Fantasy community will say, I'm streaming my playthrough of Final Fantasy, which I'm having a lot of fun. Usually, try to toss in a dad joke here and there, which everyone hates, which is always the best. I love those kind. I told one, and I was like, "Why did the rainbow why did the rainbow get arrested?" And it was like, why did the rainbow get arrested? It's because he was sent to Prism, and it's like, okay, that's pretty bad. And it's like, don't worry, it was just a light sentence. And it's like, no, there. So I do that on YouTube. Mondays and Fridays I stream 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm preparing. And I haven't officially set a start date, but I am putting a content creation challenge to myself to make 30 videos in 30 days. I'm gonna try to do it. I've trying to figure out the logistics of it because I'm gonna have to not be so critical. Even today, I'm still very critical on every one of my videos. Like, that I should have done, a cut here, or I should have done a zoom in or a laugh. I don't know. Anyway, you can find me on YouTube. I'm all over the place. I also have my own Discord. Basically, we just say hi. There's a group for Guild Wars 2 stuff, and then there's a group for Final Fantasy stuff. So, I mean, we're around for the most part. We usually just share pictures of dogs or dad jokes. That's basically, if I had to sum up my Discord.
That's good. People like that. I realized that there's 2 very quick things that I didn't ask you. First of all, I heard there was a time, and this is just a really short answer, but I heard there's a time you're thinking about going full-time content creation. Is that still on the table? Like, how close are you to that goal?
That is the objective. Now, since I have been able to essentially solidify myself and get myself into a good routine here on content creation, it's still a goal that I'm working for. It's actually the prime goal that I'm working for. However, it is still a ways, we'll say. The main reason is because I left the job that I was working at where I was gone out of my house every single day, and I was able to get a fully remote job. So that let me be able to, my wife goes into work more often than I do. I'm here with my daughters basically every single day. So it's like one of those things that solved that problem, but I've gotten that itch now. Like, I want to achieve the content creation status where it's like, this is what I do. Like, I get on here and I talk to cool people like you, or get the chance to fly out to LA, which, that was one of the biggest peak content creation moments ever. I think I still geek out about it when I talk about it. I'm like, no freaking way. I can't believe that happened. I do want to be a full-time content creator, and that is something I'm actively working for. So shout out to all the members of the channel. Shout out to every time you guys click on one of my videos. So thank you for that.
Very cool. And the other one is a meme question that's very important. So let's say that you had a really good friend, like a friend that you really trusted. Let's say this friend you did a podcast with sometimes. And then one day there's a knock at your door and you answer the door. Well, actually, you don't answer the door. You look out the window to see who it is. And there's a giant anaconda and your friend is like being consumed by the snake. And you're like, wow, like my friend is being consumed by that snake. Do you open the door?
My friend is already well consumed by this snake, right? Wrapped up.
You got like head out of the snake. They're like, help. They're knocking. They got like a hand. They're knocking on your door. Help.
He's
Caffeinated
wrapped
help.
up in a snake and he proceeded to my door.
Yeah, he got
And,
to your
okay,
door.
all right.
He was trying. You're like his last hope.
This is a horrible question. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you answer the door?
I didn't say yes immediately. Notice that. I didn't I actually thought about it and was like, oh, I think at least I can open the door and see what the situation is. I mean, in another time in life, I was a first responder, so yeah. We could assess the situation. That type of stuff doesn't freak me out, but yeah, I'd open the door. Is there now? Are you asking me like what I would do after I've opened the door?
No, just would you open the door? Would you help? Would
I open the door? A gorge snake isn't a threat. I mean, that's kind of like my point. It's like, I mean, I have to find a weapon of some sort to either pry him out or kill the snake. But I mean, it's an anaconda. Like, why was he messing around with the anaconda? Like, let's not put the blame on me. What happens? Let's put the blame on himself. What did he do?
Some people don't answer the door. Some people don't answer the call to help a friend. You know, that's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, this has been a great episode. I super appreciate you again. Remember, everybody, to subscribe on YouTube. Use your Twitch Prime on Twitch. I don't know, bits and things.
Save your Twitch Prime for Sneb. Don't that it doesn't. YouTube's funny with that. It doesn't care.
Press every button, like all of them. Okay. Just like piano it. Just press all the buttons to see what happens. But anyway, I appreciate you, Caffeinated Dad, and everybody watching. Thank you so much. And until next time.
Stay caffeinated, guys. See ya.